Oh
that one's
God.
drilled deep to right field.
Hurts going deep for it all. Devontae Smith.
He has been fantastic in this fourth.
Wow.
A break in on goal, and he scores.
Back to another edition of Two Mics All Sports. I'm your host Zach Chavy, joined by my co-host Joe Broll. What's going on, man?
What's up, Zach?
All right, so we're gonna jump right into it. This is going to be a Phillies-based episode. It's going to be another Phillies talk. Obviously, congrats to them. They did end up winning the NL East back-to-back years. They ended up doing it in the first game against the Dodgers. Obviously, those first two games were something to watch for sure. We had unlikely heroes stepping up like Weston Wilson, Rafael Marchand. What were your thoughts, at least for the first two games of the series, Joe?
I think the Phillies proved themselves. I feel like that with all the controversy that they've been getting with Turner being out, the situation with the outfield, I feel like they stepped up big into their roles of shut your mouth, we know who we are, and we're going to come and beat you no matter what the media says and no matter how you think we are. So I think that it's great they clinched the playoffs. They've won the NL East for now the second year in a row, and now they're fighting for a bye. So I'm feeling good, and I'm hopeful for the future with this team right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a good sign when you can go down to LA. Even though the Dodgers have been struggling, they're still a good overall team, and they're the reigning World Series champions. So to go down there and take at least the first two games of the series in the way you did, in the manner of these players at the bottom of the lineup stepping up, especially what Marchand was able to do in the second game with that huge 3-run home run in the ninth inning. Like that was an insane turn of events, and what he was able to do completely pushed the game the other way. And then obviously with the game one shenanigans, we were down, we come back, and then Duran blows it, and then we end up winning in extra innings. But I think, in my opinion, the more impressive game had to be the second game, because they were down, I think, 4 or 5 runs. It was 4 runs, I believe. Had that 6-run inning where they got bases loaded, Harper knocked in 2, and then Brandon Marsh with a huge 3-run home run. Once again, one of these players at the bottom of the lineup stepping up, and then Max Kepler, who has been better as of late, hitting a home run to lead to end off the 6-run inning. This offense, for the past couple of years at least, when they've been competitive and in the playoffs, their offense always seems to wake up at the right times, especially in LA. I've realized that the past couple of years, and it's a good thing to have, especially if you end up facing them in the playoffs, which now or that at some point it's going to happen. It's eventually going to happen. I don't know if I want to say lucky because we've had the Dodgers number per se, but eventually the scenario is going to match itself up. We'll be playing them in the playoffs. Hopefully it's this year because I kind of like our chances over them. I just think we are a better overall team. Yes, they have a lot of good players, but the Dodgers are notorious for choking. I feel like last year was an outlier because they brought in Ohtani. The team was fresh, and then they had perfect trade acquisitions with Tommy Edman, and they had Teoscar Hernandez, who played well, and then Jack Flaherty was a huge player for them down the stretch. Now he's back in Detroit. Teoscar has not been as good. Tommy Edman has not been good, and then obviously Ohtani's been who he's been because he's that good of a player. But just talking about the Phillies overall, I think their team is good, but I really don't. Thinking about it, like they have everything they need. They played well against the Dodgers overall. The bullpen, it was a little shaky. I felt like at least like they had some meaningful outs. Obviously, David Robertson at his age, especially with the Phillies, it's always stressful with him. So, but let's talk about something not as positive per se. They ended up losing the final game of this series. It was 5-0. They completely got dominated by Blake Snell, and the Dodgers just put up enough runs to win the game. But then obviously they go to Arizona. Let me hear your thoughts about that game.
That series, I feel like you necessarily, not saying like, oh yeah, all right, you walked in there not giving it your all, but you were also not trying to get anybody else hurt. You're looking more toward the future, even though those should have been easy wins to help boost your chances at a bye, but you just took 2 out of 3 from LA, which is a good high, clinched your division. You just have so many good things playing out for you. And I feel like this series in Arizona, they took the first game right? You can't be mad about that. At least they salvaged the series. And they lost the final two. Both were kind of blowout games. You can't really look at it as a downer, though. I feel like you got to keep looking forward. You got a series against a Marlins team that you can never really put away. As we know as Phillies fans, they're pretty good against us in the regular season. So you complete this set with the Marlins, 3-0 sweep on paper. You get that done, you get the bye. Then you have the Twins, who aren't that good. And you could potentially go 5 out of 6 games here in the upcoming week and ride that high into the playoffs. We all know how morale is in playoffs. We saw it with the 22 team when they clinched in Houston. They won in the wild card, won in the divisional, beat the Padres here in Philly with Bedlam at the bank. And then we saw it with Arizona the year after. And we saw it with the Mets last year. It's all about momentum. So the fact that you have the Marlins and Minnesota coming up, I feel like it's a big part of how your confidence will be. If you lose 2 out of 6 and you don't get the bye, then you're thinking, oh, do we really deserve to be here? But if you win 5 out of 6 or even 4 out of 6, you're like, oh shit, we're ready and everybody fear us. We're coming and we won our ring.
Yeah. I like that you bring up the point about having a good record is being confident, having good momentum going into the playoffs. I think is a huge thing in today's game. Obviously, you bring up 2023. No matter what you're going to say, the two teams that were in the World Series and the team that ultimately won the World Series were two teams that got hot at the right time. They were both they were both wild card teams that were on the road for a 3-game series. They played amazing in that series, completely dominated the 1 seeds that they played in the following series, and then upset the two seeds, I think, in the following round. They got right at the halftime. These players stepped up when they needed to. And this Phillies team, obviously, they've had major highs and major downs. But at this point, the way you're looking at it, it's not a bad West Coast road trip. West Coast road trips are probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest road trips to go through, especially this late into the season when most of these players are battered up and bruised. And obviously, you're not at full strength. Obviously, not having Trey Turner. Hopefully, he's a major boost added to this team when the postseason kicks off. But just like you said, having good team morale and having good something to build off of in the regular season to help bounce into the postseason, like I think that's huge for any team, even if you're a 100-win or maybe just the 85, 86 team that just got into the playoffs. Having a good end of the regular season can translate very well to a postseason because you see it a lot. I bring up the Dodgers again and again and again. They're always good during the regular season. They always are the number 1 seed, but they sit and rest for a while. By the time they're ready to play these teams that have already been playing the 3-game series, this team is way more hotter and are more likely to take at least 1 or 2 games in LA before going over to their place because the Dodgers, 1, aren't ready, had too much rest, and two, these teams are more hotter and they've already been in the postseason enough to understand the magnitude and what they need to do to get done. And you saw it with Arizona. Obviously, the Dodgers were able to prevail past anyone last year, but in years past, it's always been the Dodgers that have been getting knocked out by teams that are hotter at the time and more equipped to win postseason games than they were that year. So, but as you said, as we're bringing up these teams, as a Phillies fan right now, let me ask you this. Are there any teams you want to play? I know that's a tough question to ask. And are there any teams that you have no interest in playing whatsoever and don't want to see in the playoffs?
Obviously, it's always fuck the Mets. I'm kind of two-sided on this. I want to play them in the playoffs. I want to prove that last year was a fluke, that they can't come into Citizens Bank during Red October and kick our ass like they did last year. So I kind of want that rematch. I want to see us 3-0 them. Get them the fuck out of here as early as we can. And then on the other side of that, you had the fact that they did come into Philly last year. They did show us up, taking 1 out of the 2. And then we went to New York this year, and they swept us out. Like, those are things that just hold in the back of my mind. Because right now, they're teetering on the edge of getting a wild card spot. But other than that, you got a good Brewers team. Chicago, I feel like they're going to be good next year, but they're on that waiver line. They clinched. But I'm not fearful of them. We always have Chicago's number. Dodgers, I feel like they're all superstars, right? Don't get me wrong, they're all good players. They all have timely hitting, but at the same time, if a couple stars are down and your bench guys aren't providing, then your team's nothing. We saw that with the Phillies a couple months ago. We were talking with the Mets series that their bench had to step up now that everybody's getting hurt, which they did. Like you said, guys like Marchand and Marsh stepping up. A guy that you left out, which I know you didn't do intentionally, but Otto Kemp. He came in the beginning of the season for Bohm, braked, got sent back down, and they brought him back up. And man, has he been a pleasure to see play, because he's been doing great off the bench and just playing every day for us. And other than that, I'm not really paying attention to the AL side right now. I'd rather win the NL side and then have to worry about who's on that other side. Maybe by the conference series time, I'll start trying to get a better idea of who I would want to play. But right now, I'm more fearful about the Brewers, the Padres a little bit, and because they're that team. They could get their swagger. Oh, be fearful. And the Mets if they get in.
Exactly. And I like that you threw in the Padres right at the very end, because that was going to be my answer. Because the one thing that's everyone's team's worst fear is a team that's hot that has a deep bullpen. They have one of the deepest, if not the deepest, bullpen in the MLB right now. They bring in Mason Miller. They have Suarez. They have Estrada. They have guys in that bullpen that can come in any scenario and give you shutout innings. They have Suarez was their closer, and they felt like they needed to get better, and they got Mason Miller for that role. And you have Robert Suarez, who's been one of the best pitchers, one of the best bullpen pitchers in the game, as your setup man. That is absolutely gross. So if their offense gets hot, and they have the pieces, Jackson Merrill's part of this team. He's been good ever since he's come onto the show. Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis, Xander Bogaerts, Luis Arraez, Jake Cronenworth. The list goes on and on and on. This team is built for October. Reason they've been in the postseason the past couple of years. Obviously, we had their number a couple of years ago. But this is a completely different team for a few years ago, and a team that, if their offense is firing on all cylinders, their bullpen is good, that is a World Series championship team right there, and a team that can make it out of the NL. In my opinion, I do like the Cubs matchup. I think we would be able to play pretty well against the Cubs, because Cubs, I think, most inconsistent team in the National League. Pete Crow Armstrong went from being an early MVP candidate to now people are calling him the most overrated player in baseball, and I think that's agreed. Like, he plays great defense, but his bat is so inconsistent, and he really doesn't have good plate discipline up there when he's up the bat in big scenarios especially. And obviously Kyle Tucker has not been what they wanted from him. It looked like the Cubs looked like a first-half team that folded down the stretch, and it looked like they're going to get eliminated pretty early. 2024 Phillies, for example. So, but I think the Cubs, and especially, but a team I don't want to play over everyone is the Padres, because not only the Padres could take the division. I think the division's still up for grabs as of right now. So it really depends on how that happens. But if the Padres sneak up and get the division and have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, that is going to be disgusting, and no one's going to want to go play there. But even if they don't, they're still a dangerous team no matter where they play. And if they showed a few years ago that they can go. They took the Dodgers to 5 games last year. Like, they almost beat the World Series champions. They've taken the Dodgers to these series. They beat the Dodgers in 2022. Obviously, their outlier was 2023. But other than that, this Padres team, like I said, built for October, built to win a World Series, and they have one of the best, if not the best, bullpen in baseball right now. So.
Now, Zach, did the Padres play the Dodgers this week?
That I don't 100% know. I think one of the remaining series is the Milwaukee Brewers. That I can guarantee. One of the remaining series to end the year is the Milwaukee Brewers, but after that, I am not completely sure. I do. As a matter of fact, I do think they are done with the Dodgers, because I don't think they have the tiebreaker, but they're neck and neck with the Dodgers right now. But I think it all really depends on how they finish. But as of right now, don't quote me on this. I don't think they play the Dodgers. They do play the Brewers, and I can't remember who they play to end the season, I believe. So, moving on. Obviously, let me ask you this then about the Phillies. Obviously, we think they're a World Series team. Do you think what are 3 things that can hold them back from not reaching their goals this season? Let me ask you that.
Consistency at the plate. I feel like as of recently, they've gotten better of getting those singles, doubles. But as you saw earlier in the year, it would go from, oh, he hit a home run. He hit a home run. Oh, they're putting up 12, 10 runs. Then they will go on a cold streak and not score any within the next 2 games. So consistency at the plate, I think, is a big one. Fielding, making errors. You can't do that. You got to be smart in that way. Boom, can't make a bad play. Turner, when he gets back, you got to make the simple ground balls. Get the easy outs. Get the outs that they are giving you. Anything can happen when the ball gets hit in the play, but if it's a routine grounder, you got to make it. You can't leave anything left on that field. And third, base running. I could have touched on the bullpen, but I feel like the base running has been horrendous this year. Overrunning bags, not knowing what to do in situations. It's cost them runs and games this year. And I don't feel like that could be a decision factor. Say you're in a game 5, you overrun second base, they tag you out with 1 out. Now, instead of having a guy on second, 1 out, a single scores you, you're down to 2 outs, and you're basically the innings shut down at that point.
Yeah, I think that point definitely is something that needs to be talked about a lot and is very meaningful on what this team has done this year. Something I want to bring up, though, is what are we going to get out of the fourth guy in the rotation? Because I think it's pretty simple at this point. It's going to be Sanchez, Suarez, and Luzardo. But whoever they decide to throw out as that 4th starter, because they're going to have to, maybe not in the NLDS if they play so well, but in the NLCS if they make it, they're 100% going to have to throw out a 4th starter. Obviously, a few years ago, they did that with Noah Syndergaard. He did his job, and then they had to do Bailey Falter. He got rattled pretty hard. But the options you have are Aaron Nola, who's been god-awful. That Mets game showed us nothing. He's back. He's the same Nola he's been all year. Taijuan Walker, who's had good moments, but still is going to get – I think he guarantees you to give up at least 3 or 4 runs every night.
Always in the first inning, too. And that's just a momentum killer right away.
Exactly. And then Walker Buehler, who you can't expect much out of. You just brought him in. Obviously, he has postseason experience. Obviously, he was great out of the bullpen with the Dodgers last year. But you can't expect much out of him. He's not the pitcher he used to be. I think that's a big cause for concern in my opinion. Number 2, what they decide to do in the outfield. Because obviously what's working right now is Marsh, Bader, and Kepler. But obviously Castellanos always going to put himself in the middle of something. Obviously what he said, I don't even know why he opened his mouth about when they interviewed him about the whole Rob Thompson thing. The more he talked, the more of a retard he sounded. I'm sorry, but
sure.
it's he just needed to shut up, and he didn't. So, but what they decided to do with the outfield, because if they're going back and forth with the platoons between Kepler and Castellanos, what consistency is that going to leave into the lineup? And especially if Kepler is playing well, say in the 5-6 hole, and you take him out for Castellanos, and Castellanos isn't doing well, then you're going to lose that consistency in the lineup. You're going to lose that team chemistry, and the team is going to question the manager's decision, which I think has been a constant issue throughout. We just haven't heard about it. And then honestly, for my third decision, it goes back to the manager. I think he can make good decisions, but Rob Thompson is very back and forth, very inconsistent. He makes a very good decision, but then he can make a very bad decision that can completely change the outcome of the game. And you can't do that in the postseason. One game could mean the whole series in the grand scheme of things. I know that's crazy to say, but if you really take a deep dive into the understanding of the postseason and look at every game by game, you lose one game, it could decide the whole series because you lost that game. You're not getting that game back. You can't rebound. You have to try to just rebound because of it. So, but that's ultimately how I feel. But to recap, is there anything as of right now, before we get into the postseason, that you are really looking out for, and what you want them to do to end the season off before we get into postseason action?
Before we get into the postseason, they just need to ride high. They need to have those momentum swings. They can't have these controversies within the clubhouse. They need to settle everything before the end of the game Sunday against the Twins. I would love to see them take that final game against the Twins, if not the final two, and it would be even better if they get the sweep and ride that into a bye. Prove that the bye isn't a weakness. Get Turner back healthy. And I would just love to see them having fun again.
Yeah. This is how I'm going to wrap it up at the end of the day. This is your last opportunity to get everything cleaned up, get everyone connected in the clubhouse, like you said, and go into the postseason with as least problems as you can. There's going to be problems. No team is perfect going to the postseason. If you're perfect going to the postseason, I'm sorry, you're getting eliminated very long, because everyone has flaws in the postseason. They get exposed or they don't, or they get exposed enough that lose you series. Minimize the problems for the time being that you can get into the postseason and just work from there. If you minimize these problems and they're not glaring issues in your first postseason game, then you're fine. They'll disintegrate as games go by. But you can't go into issues with the playoffs. That's how ultimately I feel. But other than that, is there anything you want to mention, or do you want to once again preview what we got coming up?
No, I think we hit on every point, and I think that the Phillies know what's expected of them. They know how much this year is valuable and how it's do or die.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, going into this week, Friday, we're going to do the Milk Mile. Zach will be running it. That will be uploaded either early Saturday, some point Saturday, or later Friday night. And then we may have an Eagles preview for you guys later on in the week, since we were able to get this video out early. And then Sunday, we could hit you with a doubleheader on the live stream, depending on how the Phillies do and how the Eagles do. We're definitely going to do a live stream for the Eagles, but we might hit you with some Phillies comments too. So look out, hit that follow button on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube, and please support in any way you can. Reach out if you guys ever want us to talk about your topics. And thank you for watching.
Yep. I think you summed it up perfectly. Like he said, keep watching. It's only going to go up from here. I mentioned in the live stream yesterday, we got some amazing ideas planned for everyone to watch here. As soon as this postseason starts, our content is going to intensify times 10. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, that's going to wrap up today's show. Hopefully, be on the lookout definitely for the challenge later this week. I look forward to doing that. Hopefully, you guys all tune in, share it. If it goes viral, I really don't care at the end of the day. That's what I want at the end of the day. So, but other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we hope to see you guys later this week. Peace.